Welcome to Maverick Mind, the podcast. If you are a creative soul, really ready to unlock your potential and design your path to freedom on your terms, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Ellie, designer, entrepreneur, yogi, and coach, and consider this your home to dive into the mindset, energy, and strategy to fast track your way to success. I'll also introduce you to some of the most creative, visionary, and maverick minds I know to share their insights, to feed your curiosity, and to inspire your next creation. I'm so happy you're here, so let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of Maverick Mind, or a massive warm welcome to you if this is the first time that you're joining me. So great to connect with you in this way. I'm going to kick off today's episode right off the bat by ripping the band-aid off and saying a word that you probably resist like the absolute plague. That word is marketing. Marketing, branding, sharing our work is something that so many of us struggle with, and so many of us has the massivest amount of resistance around. I know that feeling all too well, and I also know the breakthrough that can come from realizing actually how to market yourself in the most authentic way possible, which is why I was really happy to sit down with today's guest. Today I am joined by Kaitlyn David. She combines mindfulness tools with 15 plus years of experience in the marketing and branding corporate world to guide creatives and entrepreneurs to really find their authentic voice and become an authority within their industry in their most authentic way possible. The tools, the practices, and the insights that she shares in this interview, I think, will be a massive breakthrough for a lot of people. We overcomplicate this word marketing so much, but it can be so simple and it can be so freeing, actually, just to share yourself in the ways that she kind of unlocks through this conversation. So I'm really excited to hear your feedback on this one, and I'm really excited to hear if you incorporate these tools, these tips, these tricks into the way that you're sharing your work and how it goes. Do let me know. Slide into my DMs. I'm always so excited to connect with you guys and to hear everything that you're doing and to see your work and everything. So do let me know. And if you do love today's episode, share it with a friend that it might help, or share it online. If you do share it on Instagram, of course, tag me at Maverick Mind Co and tag Kaitlyn at Flourish with Kaitlyn to let us know how you're getting on. Let's dive in. Let's rip off that band-aid. Let's talk all things marketing and branding with Kaitlyn David. Welcome, Kaitlyn. So happy to have you here on Maverick Mind. A big warm welcome to you. I'm so excited to dive into your story and your message as well through branding and all the other things under that umbrella. I'd really love to know first, I think, because this is a word that I think we might come back to often in this interview, I really want to dive into this word authority first to begin with, and kind of what that means from a creative standpoint, or what that word really represents to you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. I'm just happy to be here today. Authority. You caught me off guard, but but I love that word. I use it in my work because I think that so often I meet a lot of women in particular, but a lot of entrepreneurs that are just so incredibly creative and brilliant. And then when they present themselves online, they tend to shrink themselves. But when they can step into their authority, which I believe is your true, authentic voice with an edge. So, really coming forward with your bold voice, your bold opinion with a lot of confidence. When you step into that authority, that's when it all kind of clicks for you. And the people that are meant for you are going to come forward, and you really become this magnetic driving force within your industry, your community, whatever it is that your goal is that you're trying to do.
I totally agree with that. And I think sometimes that feeling of being an authority can be kind of different to everyone. I think that I speak to a lot of creative people in my coaching work and just generally in life who think that to be that voice, to be a leader, to be an authority, you have to come at it with quite a hard edge.
Mm.
You have to come out with this feeling of like force. But and energy is a great thing, but I think a lot of that authority really comes through authenticity and just
Hmm.
really being vulnerable enough to be able to speak your truth. So I think it's cool that you have so many tools that you guide people with when you're thinking about their branding that kind of uncovers that authenticity through like mindfulness practices and things like that. I think that's a really interesting blend and maybe something that maybe a lot of people wouldn't have put together, but I'm
Yeah,
sure it makes
true.
a lot of magic.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people are so focused on the what and like getting that right, whether, on social media, it's like the algorithm and the vanity metrics, the actual words that they're putting out there, which are really important. Your words are extremely important. They have a lot of weight, but who you're being, I think really trumps that. And without the presence, that specific presence that you want to have, the words don't really matter as much, because words can definitely change depending on your energy behind them, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think everything we put out into the world, the energy that we like, send with it when you put it out into the world, or the energy that you use to create it, really does have an effect on how magnetic your message is to other people,
Yeah.
whatever that message may be. I'd love to know because you have kind of, as I said, this like unique approach to branding, like how you came to kind of choose to follow that path of guiding people through their branding or through their message.
Yeah, it's really a personal journey. So I worked in marketing and media for over 15 years. And when I left that about 4 years ago, yeah, actually 4 years ago, I really didn't think I was going to go back. And I still loved marketing and all of that, but I was just really using those tools in my own business. I'm like, well, I still get to do marketing. It's just for myself. And on my kind of entrepreneurial path, it turns into a really like a personal growth journey, a lot of healing, things like that. And on that journey, I got really into meditation, mindfulness, and then I decided to become certified in meditation. I did a coaching certification, just a lot of things along the way of those kind of alternative healing modalities, those different tools to really go deeper. And what I really realized was I was missing kind of that internal piece. And I kept on like pushing and forcing the external piece. And I felt like I just kept failing. And it wasn't really failing. It was all of the lessons that I needed to have. It was just that I was looking at other people's successes compared to mine rather than defining success for myself. So I never really thought that I was going to come back to like branding and marketing as my business at all. I was doing things completely different. I was in a low tox consultant, helping people detox their homes. I was helping women with infertility and as a mindfulness teacher. It's totally different. And then what happened was I realized that a lot of my peers that I had met along the way on my own journey were having the same struggles and that my mindfulness tools could really help them. So I actually started my coaching practice based more on almost like life coaching and mindfulness, but it was for entrepreneurs. And then ultimately, they needed help with their marketing. And so it all kind of just like seamlessly came together but in a weird way. And even at first for me, I was like, I don't know if this truly makes sense, but there has to be something here. Like there has to be something here because it's working for me. And it just seems to be this like evolution. And usually, when things don't make sense, but you're just following the pings, it all kind of like comes together, is what I've learned. So to really listen to my intuition. So yeah, over time, it's just really come together. And every time that I work with an entrepreneur, they are so focused on one thing. And then we talk about kind of the energetics behind it and the mindfulness tools and managing your energy, and they realize that creating the content and things like that isn't necessarily their biggest problem. It's that they're trying to like be something else. They're trying to be someone else. They're not allowing their true voice to come through. But when they start to put some of these rituals into place, they come back to themselves and they feel so much more empowered. They're so much more creative. They realize that they have so much potential and so much to offer. They don't really need all these other things outside of themselves.
I love that. And yeah, I think I'm very much of the same mind, both from my own journey and also through the work that I do now, is that incorporating the mindfulness tools, or for me, yogic tools and philosophies and things into my creative process really shifted that perception of who I should be and who I actually am. Like the kind of creative I thought I should be and the creative that I actually am, but also the way that to express that, and also the way to, outside of that, maintain a business and stay sane.
Yeah, stay
Which can
sane.
be,
That's key.
yeah, which can be a challenge without the tools, the kind of tools under your belt, or finding whatever kind of grounding, I'd say, tools that bring you home to yourself, in the midst of sometimes things can feel a bit chaotic. So to kind of find that truth and to decipher what's external noise and what's intuition. I think especially when you're talking about stuff like content, so many strategies and stuff people bat
Mhm.
around the internet. Like, this is how you get a viral reel on Instagram. This is how you build a following. This is how you do this, and this is how you do this. It's quite a formulaic. But I find a lot of creatives are getting quite frustrated when they're
Mhm.
following those kind of tactics and it's not really reaping the results that they want.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know, maybe in like a edited form, what kind of tools or what kind of practices that you guide people through to really unlock that authentic voice, or unlock that, I suppose, authoritative voice. That's a hard word to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to comment on what you just said, that's a big piece and like a big driving force of my kind of opinion and my work is that we do need to burn the rule book. And it's really frustrating because I believe that a lot of those rules and things that people are feeling like they have to adhere to is the reason why they're shrinking themselves and they're not showing up online as their best version or their boldest selves. And I've been there, like even with all of the marketing experience and things like that, I was desperate, let's say, to really get my business off the ground when I first started. It was totally different going from corporate to the entrepreneurial world. And I was like, okay, let me try this. Let me try this. This is what people are saying. And I've had the videos go viral. I've had the followers increase. And that doesn't necessarily mean your business is booming. So I think also when we see these people who are talking about that, there's so much more to the story behind the screen that we don't know. So you really have to be careful of like who you listen to and things like that. And just really, my whole stance is around having integrity and making sure that you create content that is extremely conscious and intentional. You have compassion, and then you have that confidence piece as well. And the people that I really gravitate to online also carry those qualities. And you can tell that, like, even though they're being really bold with their opinion, and maybe sometimes it could feel in your face, maybe I don't even agree with them, but you can tell it's coming from a place of responsibility. And it's not just to put something out there to grow their business. So, yes, that's a huge piece that I could probably talk on for a while. But to answer your question about the kind of rituals and tools, so one of the things that I always have my clients do is to do like more of like an energetic audit when they are first starting to work with me. So not just looking at their content and their branding, but what's sucking their energy and what's giving them life. And really getting clear on that. When do you feel not so great? And around your business or throughout your day, and when are you just feeling like really empowered and in flow, and start jotting down and taking some notes on that because it's very telling. It's very eye-opening to just look at that piece without judgment. So that's something that everyone always does. And then it's really about understanding who you're being when you show up in your business and online. Because again, I think that we have this story or this picture of that or this idea of that. But when we zoom out and really take a look at our Instagram, our website, our emails, wherever else you are on social media, whether it's TikTok or maybe you're in LinkedIn, what's the full picture saying and how are you being perceived by others? And sometimes that's difficult when you're so close to it. But when you can zoom out, you can start to see that gap between who you're actually being and who you want to be. And it's not to say that that's a false identity, but more of like, who do you want to stretch yourself to become? And then how can we close that gap? So those things are really about awareness, right? And like obviously I have some tools to help them to do that, but like that's really about just like checking in with yourself and stepping away from your business almost in a sense. So that would be one big thing. And then the other piece of what I share is more about rituals because once you kind of get to a place where you're feeling really good about your content and your brand, it's all about consistency, right? Like because we're not going to have the same energy every day. But if you show up to a space where you're supposed to be promoting your offer and you are in a negative mindset, that's going to come off much more differently than if you feel so good about what you're putting out into the world, even when you create an offer. So there's two types of rituals that I generally walk my clients through. One is energetic management rituals, and the other one are creativity rituals. So the first is about having a ritual every single day that focuses on putting you in the right mindset before you start your work, before you go to create content, before you go to show up on social media, or before you send an email. Even when you go to send an email, sometimes like if you're not in the right mindset, the words are going to come out much differently. So some of those things that you can do is you might need grounding. If you need grounding, meditation's obviously great. Going for walks out in nature is great. I actually love water sometimes for grounding, and it depends on like who you are, like how that affects your body. But a shower if you have that opportunity in the middle of the day and you can do it, great. Cold dipping, swimming, those kinds of things. And then one of my absolute favorite tools is EFT tapping. So that's an emotional freedom technique. And if anyone's not familiar with that, you can look it up online. There's plenty of videos on YouTube how to do it. What I love about it so much is that it only has to take 3 minutes. It doesn't have to take a long time once you learn it. And when you pair it with mantras, it's even more powerful, but really just learning the locations on your body of where to tap, it regulates your nervous system and it really grounds your body and gets all of the negative energy out. So setting up these rituals in a way before you go to work. So if you only have 2 hours to work, because I know there's probably people, parents listening that maybe like only have a little bit of time because their kids are home, or maybe you are working a full-time job and you're also, trying to do this career on the side. I totally get it. You have limited time, but your output is going to be so much better if you spend that time up front utilizing this ritual, even if you have a small amount of time versus just trying to force things out in that like 2 hour chunk that you have without having this ritual. And it really takes away from like, so whatever you were doing before, it's a great transition into now, okay, now I'm in this mindset. So that's a wonderful way to start your day. And then there are like more creativity rituals. So, from a creative standpoint, a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm not creative today. Or again, there's this like time pressure crunch on like, I can't just be creative right now, but I have to get my work done. So, what can you do to get into that creative mindset? So, again, this might be something like EFT tapping where you're just getting out of your head, or you have to express something somatically, like through breath work or running or getting negative energy out. But it also could be a way to open your creative pathways. And I love this so much. I utilize intuitive drawing. And what that is I keep a blank notebook on my desk that doesn't have any lines and a cup of like fun markers or pens. Like have fun with it, right? Like go to the store, get something that like really sparks a joy, and you don't think about it. Maybe you put on some music, light a candle, just pick the pen or marker that's calling to you, and don't think about what you're going to draw. Just start putting the pen or marker to the page and just see what comes out. Like sometimes my page will just be filled with squiggles. I don't know why I like just like love that squiggle feeling. It's like soothing to me. Um, I had a mentor once who shared this idea with me, and she showed me one of her notebooks. She's like, one day she had like a football field drawn on the page. She's like, I have no idea why. And it doesn't matter. The idea is that it's opening up your creative pathways, and all of a sudden you're putting yourself in a receiving state so that you can have some kind of either intuitive download or creative download. So I highly recommend this. You do not need to be an artist. A lot of you listening probably are really artistic. So, but like, even doing the art for fun and not for your job too is really important, because sometimes we're doing this actually as our career, and then it makes it really hard when we just want to like open up the pathway. So I love that. And then a more digital format, obviously like painting and things like that are great for this as well, but a digital format. So I work with a lot of clients on actual messaging. So when I'm not teaching them how to do it, I have a few clients where I'm doing it for them. And so I have to get into that mindset, but I'm a very visual person. So I go into the tool Canva, and I might not even be creating a graphic for them, but I actually start to work on some type of visual before I start writing, and the visuals help with the words. It's a strange thing, but I think if you are a more visual person, you're like inspired by maybe seeing some of the templates in there, looking up photos. I mean, Pinterest works the same way, but something about actually creating it yourself in Canva, like taking a template and then deconstructing it, maybe like making a logo, really allowing yourself to feel into the brand. Even for myself, sometimes I create like Instagram stories or Instagram posts for a new offer. And I'm not even necessarily, sometimes I don't even end up using them, which seems like a waste of time, but actually it opens up, it allows me to feel how the person on the other side of the screen is going to feel. Like, how do I want them to feel when I talk about my offer? And it allows the words to flow in a different way, and they just start to come out, and it's like you're immersed in the project, you're immersed in the offer, so it just comes out easier. So those are just a couple things.
I love that, or all of them. um, but yeah, I think those are such great tools. I think people will find really, really easy, I hope, to implement into their life or to add in. But they're all things that I think that it's so easy when you're adulting and you're trying to make your passion, your business, or your career to one, um, be in this like state of anxiety where you wake up in the morning and you immediately don't prioritize yourself, or don't give yourself to that time to center first, and just kind of rush about the day, and then the rest of the day's kind of for everyone else but not for yourself. And I think that having those really simple rituals is something really easy to do, and it's become quite a popular thing over the last few years of people having super long morning routines,
Mm.
which isn't realistic for everybody. But those things that you've said are something so simple that you can do in a very short amount of time if you're somebody that is limited on time. Um, and also things like I found on my journey, stuff like breath work or like EFT or something, is something you can do really easily throughout the day. Like
Mm.
if you notice some kind of negative self-talk come into your mind, just to pause for a second and take a moment to like tap your way through it. It really does help to shift that energy, and then your energy can then be put to better use throughout the rest of the day. But I think also sometimes when we're taking ourselves a bit too seriously, we forget that it's actually vital that we open up our creative pathways, as you say, and open ourselves up to play,
Mm.
even just for a minute. Like the kind of intuitive drawing exercise is such a great thing, or to do something like whatever might resonate for you, but like the Canva exercise where you are just sort of dragging and dropping stuff and then slowly starting to see something come together in front of you, and then all of a sudden you have that picture in your mind. But in terms of marketing or branding, I think a lot of creatives struggle with this word marketing because we think it's this like guy in a grey suit, like
Car salesman.
kind of like super businessy thing. But the way that, so you just said a phrase there, which I think sums up what marketing actually is in the most eloquent and beautiful way, and that is, how do I want somebody to feel when they receive my what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
literally all it is.
Yep. Yes.
um, and I think to kind of get a picture of who that person is and then to really focus on how do I want to feel, brings so much more intention into what you're doing too.
Yeah. And a lot of my work is centered around journal prompts, actually. So a lot of people on social media out there are, when people are having a hard time creating content, I think this is great, but it's not, it doesn't work for everyone, is they're putting out there and saying like, here's like 25 hooks for your reels, or
Yeah.
here's, whatever these prompts, these hooks for creating your content. And I think it comes from a good place. It actually is very intentional, and it helps people a lot of the time. And for a lack of a better word, though, it's a little bit like lazy in some ways because people don't want to spend time creating the content, which I get. But if once you get really clear on the outcome that you want for your client and you know that they desire, and you center all of your content and your messaging around that, content creation becomes so much easier. Like it's so much easier. I used to spend, hours batching content, things like that. I don't do that at all anymore. At the beginning of every week, I'm like, what's the message I want to share this week about, how I help people. And I might, come up with a couple different posts, go into Canva. I like doing graphic posts. Maybe there's a reel here or there. And I really just do look at the week, because also energetically, when you start to batch and things like that, or you use other people's hooks, you go to post it or you look back at it, you're like, oh, that doesn't align anymore. And then again, the energy isn't the same when it comes through. So I utilize what I call content journal prompts. And actually on my newsletter, I just started sending them out every week. And they're just questions to get you again to creatively like free write. And what really stands out from what you wrote that you can now post. And I always ask people, who are you talking to and how do you help them? Because if you're just focusing on what you do, people are not attracted to that. They want to know how you can support them. And if you always know who you're talking to, how you help them, and then to go a little bit further, like you said, how do you make them feel? Then that's all you really need to know. Everything else flows from that.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Something that I've seen a lot of creatives struggle with in this kind of conversation, however, is, I mean, if you have like a creative business or a service-led business, it's really easy to know what you do and how you help.
Mm-hmm.
If you're creating art, or if you're an entertainer or a musician or something, sometimes it's harder to really decipher what it is that how you're helping somebody.
Yeah.
And do you have any practices or something that someone could reflect upon if they're in that state of like, oh, well, I don't really know how I help that someone?
Yeah. Well, when you think of like music or dance, like some kind of like performative art, um, it's how are you connecting with them? I think that goes back to more of the feeling, like you said. Like when you get into that state, when you are writing like song lyrics or something like that, like how do you, it's kind of like when I write a meditation, how do I want the person to feel? Do I want them to feel like, do I want to ignite something within them? Or do I want them to feel more soothing and calming? And a lot of times, this might actually come from a place of like how you feel, and how do you want to feel, and how do you want to express that. So often I think we're thinking about someone else, and all the marketing gurus will tell you like you have to put yourself in the other person's kind of body or their mindset. And I do think that that is true, but in this case I would actually think more about maybe how you feel and why are you creating this type of art. And there's more than likely a lot of other people out there that are feeling the same way. I mean, that's why you look at like big artists, right? From a song perspective. Why do people love their music? Because they relate to those words so deeply. And it's generally something that the artist is feeling or going through in their own life. So I don't think that you have to overthink it so much. That's a big issue that a lot of us have is we start to overthink it so much. We overthink the outcome. But it could easily be, you want to spark joy in someone's life. And that's your mission.
Yeah, or you just want to connect with people. Or,
Hmm.
and also I think when you're doing something like that, I've said this a bunch of times, you don't really know how what you create is gonna, you might have one intention behind what you're creating, but somebody else could receive it in another way that
Yeah.
actually meets them where they are. They feel seen by you somehow through whatever your through your painting, through your sculpture, through your dance, through your the way that you sing. They feel met by you or really seen by you, whether you intend to or not. It's in
Hmm.
the act of sharing that thing, that expression of yours, that we build connection. And as you say, don't overthink it. That's kind of enough.
Hmm.
Like human connection is kind of enough.
Yeah.
Um, but I think again for those kind of people, then it's like, well, maybe I need a personal brand or a real strong message behind what I'm doing, and that might go into overthinking again. But do you think that there is, like, in terms of getting noticed, I suppose, as a
Hmm.
creative, whether that's a really vital thing to have that like really underpinning personal brand message, or do you think it's more just be authentic and the people will come?
Well, yes, there is a double-edged sword to that. So, yeah, I would say that that's where the authenticity kind of with an edge comes in because the online space is crowded. If you want to really be seen and grown in that way, you do need a differentiator, right? Whether that's like an opinion or you're creating art for a purpose, maybe something like that. Like you're going to most likely grow quicker if you do have that edge. And how can you dig a little bit deeper into what you're doing? Like there's always like this underlying feeling or an underlying message that like is within you. I think there's something inside of everyone that like maybe you're not truly saying that wants to come out. So like what is that that wants to be spoken that you're not saying? And if you compare that with your art, I think that that could be really powerful for people. The other thing is not to get like completely into this topic, but a piece that I'm going to be incorporating in all of my work moving forward and has helped me in my life so much is human design.
Mm.
So, like, just better understanding yourself through human design. And based on your human design, like, how can you show up online or do your marketing how you're meant to be, because everyone's kind of meant to do it differently. So if you're feeling a frustration towards like the rule books or the way people are telling you you have to do it, you may not be meant to do it the way that they're doing it. You might actually be meant to really go through your own networks and like maybe you just have like a social media presence so that when people after they meet you they go on and you don't have to be consistently creating content. Like we see this one type of person, this one type of business owner, but that doesn't mean that that's the way that you have to do it. There's still a whole world out there outside of social media and email marketing and like all of these things. Are they important? Absolutely. But you might be someone that really connects with people more in community first, and you don't have to be doing it their way. So, doing some more personal discovery, I think, will help that message come out.
Totally. And yeah, discovering human design gave me a lot of permission slips on my journey as well. It's kind of a profound of like, oh, this is why I am like this. But
Yes.
for anyone listening who doesn't know what human design is, just can you give like a little bullet points of what it is?
Sure. Yeah. So human design is a system that helps you understand how you are meant to show up in the world energetically. And there's 5 different energy types. So everyone is one of these energy types. It's based on your birth date and your time of birth. So if you Google human design chart, There's plenty of chart generators out there. They're all the same. I mean, the charts look a little different, but it'll give you all the same information. But you do need your time of birth. So it is tied to astrology. There's four different kind of working inner workings behind it. The chakra system, astrology, Chinese methodology, and then also the Jewish Kabbalah tree. So it comes all together to really define how you're meant to show up in the world energetically, to really just make your life easier. And when you start to understand it, I think so many people resonate with it because 90% of what you learn is nothing new. It's a validation, or you start to realize that you've been going against the way that you truly feel, but it's a permission slip, like you said, to move forward in the way that you're meant to be.
Yeah. And anyone that's listening that's never done their human design chart, I don't think, or is maybe thinking, this is a bit woo, but I've never met a person that I've done, like I've seen do their human design chart not have that moment of go, oh, that's why I'm like
Mhm.
that.
Totally. It's crazy. Even my husband, who is definitely not woo, he was like taken back by how accurate it is. It's really nuts.
Yeah, it is really crazy. And yeah, it does, like not to go too far into it, but it does really show, kind of map out, especially in terms of marketing, like the best way to first utilize your energy, how you use energy best, but also then how to kind of express the best in the way that's
Hmm.
going to be both the best for you, but also the way other people will see you, which is so interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of nuts. But yeah, so I always say when people say, what are like two things that really helped you on your entrepreneurial journey, like when you first started? And one is always learning my human design, and then two, really understanding intuition and listening to that. And so, I know that a lot of people want like tangible tools and tips, and it's so important to have that strategy aspect, but none of that is going to mean anything if you don't know all of this about yourself first, and really understanding your energy, who you're being, how you're meant to show up, and really listening to yourself. Like, what is your authentic voice? What is your purpose in this world? What are you trying to get out there and do? So even for artists and things like that, that like it's not like a service-based business where it's like my client is going to have this outcome, like you were saying, but what is your purpose behind this? Like, why do you want to create? There's a reason, there's a deep reason in there, and that can be your outcome. That can be like what I like to call your powerful marketing message.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think especially something like intuition, something I'm really passionate about speaking to, because I think without trusting that and without really trusting that inner knowing, we can get misled so much in this space, both in the entrepreneurial
Hmm.
space and in the creative space. We can so easily kind of go into a place where we are wearing this shell or wearing a costume of the kind of creative that we think we are, or the kind of business owner that we think we should have. And from a mindset perspective, I always witness when people are trapped in that is the cause of their anxiety, stress, and depression often. Because
Hmm.
creatives are statistically more likely to experience anxiety and depression, and it's my anchored belief that it comes mostly from not really expressing who that inner voice and really following and
Mm.
trusting their inner knowing, I suppose.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of going against who you truly believe you are.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to know, like, having dove into mindfulness and human design and a bunch of other stuff, like, do you think coming from maybe the more corporate marketing world and now into this business that you have now, do you think there's a big difference in the way that you maybe explore marketing or now teach marketing than you did then to how you did now?
What's actually interesting? There's not. There's not a lot of difference. I think the main difference is before I was working with big brands, so it wasn't personal brands. So I think that that is the big differentiator. But it's kind of funny, like this whole idea of like content strategy, content marketing, like these bigger brands have been doing it for a long time. And I worked at a media company 4 years ago, That was my last job in corporate marketing. And the whole idea for the, for 5 years, 6 years I was there was all about creating content for brands and telling stories. And the funny part is all these brands, as we all see now, want to pair up with like influencers and real people because people want to connect with other people in their stories. Yet, as a personal brand, we're all trying to put ourselves into a box, which is stripping away our whole story and identity. So, like, let's actually embrace that because these big brands, that's all they're trying to do is to grasp onto that so that people can connect with us. So, that's so much of what I would do is actually completely not even talk about the brand. It was really about connecting them with other people and other stories that their potential audience would enjoy. And then their brand was just like a piece of that. So yeah, it's interesting. Not there's a lot of parallels actually, a lot of parallels. I think the big difference is how we manage ourselves because a personal brand is just so personal. And that means that there is the mindset work involved, there is the energetics involved that doesn't come along with more of like a corporate marketing role.
Yeah, and I guess for something like that, that's so funny, but also so true that like they want the real people, and then when the real people try to kind of work with them, they take themselves a bit too seriously. But I think that we have to give ourselves this like permission slip almost. Excuse me. Um, like for some people, it's really hard to believe that like, oh, so literally just being myself, I'm gonna get everything that I want. you know, or like just putting myself out there as I actually am, and that's going to be enough.
Mhm.
And it is enough. I mean, obviously you need a little bit of strategy there, and you need a little bit of a clear message, I suppose, there or a thread of some kind. But actually, it is that simple. It's like be yourself,
Mhm.
and that is kind of good enough.
Yeah, it really is true. And I think it's just having intention and consistency and simplification behind it. So when you show up, that's kind of the marketing aspect is that you're being yourself. The message is you, but you're kind of just giving a sliver of it. And I think so many people are like, oh, I like know this person because they're showing up online, they're showing all this piece of their life, but really you're only getting a sliver of it. And when you do it well, you're just saying the same thing over and over and over again in slightly different ways. And I think that's where people get tripped up like, oh, well, I'm just going to be myself and like show my life all day, like on social media. But that's where people are going to say, well, what are you selling me? Or like, how can you help me? Or how do you want to make me feel? Because I just see all like, that's great. I like you, but like, I don't actually know, how I can work with you. So I think that sometimes people swing too far. So it is about like, you're still running a business. You still, people are expecting that of you if that's the way that you portray yourself online, but that's like a piece of you. Like it's still your message. You have to do your business your way, I think is what I'm getting at. It's just that but you're still running a business. It's not like you're just showing your lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't it? And there is like I always say like take your business seriously, but don't take yourself very seriously.
Yeah.
Um, and that kind of gives people the freedom to like have a bit of structure, but also feel free enough to share themselves. But I think, as you say, a lot of it is repeating yourself 1,000 times in a different ways, and something that I see a lot of creatives do, especially ones that are trying to sell something like a service or a painting or even a product. Sometimes, especially new product-based business owners, they'll share it once and then go, "Well, no one's buying it."
We've all been there.
Yeah, nobody's seeing me. It's like,
And that's like a wound within ourselves, right? That we have to pay attention to. But yeah, no, you see it all the time. And I've done it before too. I'm like, oh, I put that up there. Nobody responded. So it's obviously not for them, or I'm over this.
yeah.
But that's the hard part about being in business for yourself. Sometimes there's going to be no response, or there's not going to be anything to respond to. And sometimes it can get boring because you are saying the same things over and over again. But just because it's boring to you, it doesn't mean that it's boring to someone else, especially if they're new to you and they're just learning you and what you offer.
Yeah, and I think when you're the one putting all this, the creating all the content, you're putting so much of your heart and so much love into really putting your work out into the world. It's really hard sometimes for people to realize that not everyone else like will register absolutely everything you put out all the time. So it's
Hmm.
kind of like for it's a broken record to you. But I've had so many experiences of mine that you're putting something out there loads and loads of times. You feel like you're a broken record, but you just keep going. And then you're speaking about the same thing for months and months. And then months later, somebody goes, "Well, I didn't know you did that.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? You're like, I've been saying this for how
I've been
long?
saying this for so long."
Because especially in this world, like we move so quickly, people are just on to the next thing. They're not even seeing it. That's why, you know, people get so worried about a post that they're going to put up or an email they're sending out. And of course, you want it to do well. You want it to come across the right way. I totally get it, but like literally they're on to the next thing within 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people's attention span, they might only even read half of it, which,
Hmm.
like, I think um, sometimes people can feel a bit disheartened by that. But
Hmm.
anyone listening that perhaps is feeling a bit disheartened by that path, do you have any or that kind of feeling that people aren't listening or people aren't
Mm.
registering what they're saying? Do you have advice or tools or practices that kind of bring people back into power in that moment?
Yeah, I just think about how your work can impact one single person. If one person hears your message, if one person connects with you, if one person, sees something that you posted, like how that could change their life, and not focus so much on the mass, but like we even businesses, they're built one connection at a time. There's all this idea of going viral and things like that, but like really it's person to person to person to person. And knowing that most of the people that are seeing our things out in the world are not saying anything. They're very passive, right? Like they're not engaging. So understanding too that you're only seeing probably half the story, right? Like there's people that go on social media and they don't even like anything. Like they don't, so you wouldn't even know um if and then all of a sudden, this has happened to me a million times, like out in the real world, I'll see someone, they're like, oh, I love so much what you've been talking about. And, da, da, da. And I'm like, really? I didn't even know you followed me. Like, what? And it's just so crazy. So we have to get out of our heads around that. That's where so many of the mindset tools come in. That's so much around the energy management, having those rituals. You and I, we have these same issues, right? Like they don't go away. That's why they're so important. This is so important. This work has to be done if you want to move forward because we all feel like this. And the problems you have now are only going to be the same, if not bigger, as you grow. So, but if you can learn how to come back from them quicker, it's only going to get better and easier for you.
Yeah, for sure. And the things that will like bring you back are those things that when you're in a rush, you think is a waste of time, but it's not, like the intuitive drawing or EFT or taking a moment to do some breath work or moving your body. I'm a big fan of just having a random 8 minute workout. Sometimes when you feel like that, just to come back to yourself. But just to kind of summarize a little bit, I suppose if somebody is like newly thinking about putting their work out into the world and they're starting to think about the way to do that, or I suppose, I guess, creating a loose umbrella brand over that,
Mhm.
what do you think goes into having a really successful brand?
So you want to get really clear again on your purpose. and how you're going to turn that into a vision for your business. Whether this is a very creative business, it's a product-based business, a service-based business, it really doesn't matter. Especially for a personal brand, people want to connect with your story and your purpose. I actually have a free like little mini course that I offer. It's called it's really all about finding your purpose, really. So it's like a 4-day quick thing because I think this is essential place where you have to start and know that what you thought maybe was your purpose or your vision might not be, and it's okay to pivot, because I think that finding that is so, so, so important first. And then once you know that, you can start to build your brand around it and asking yourself questions of like, what is that deep seated purpose or vision that's like keeping me up at night? Like maybe it's something that you've gone through that you've now overcome. What is like your heart really like craving to like speak on? What is like something that you see out in the world that you're like, no, that's not the way to do it, like you have this strong opinion against it, and you're like, based on your values, that there's a better way and you want to help people get there in a different way. Really taking some time to journal on that and get those words onto a page, but 100% defining that purpose and turning it into like a vision for the businesses is the first place you have to start. Um, and then from there, it's okay, so how are you helping people? And if that, um, needs to be more of how you want people to feel, that could be another question too. But that's definitely that outcome that you're delivering is so important.
Yeah, totally agree. And like, just for again, maybe people slightly earlier on their journey, how vital do you think things like having a shiny website, a logo, or anything like that really are?
I don't think they're that valuable in the beginning. I think we do them for different reasons. I should say that. I think that they're valuable in building confidence in yourself. And again, understanding the way that you want to make people feel through your brand. So I know that when I was first starting out and I focused so much on my business, or my business website, it was a really fun process for me. And I ended up not even sending that many people to my website. Even now, like not that many people probably go directly to my website. There's so many other places they're going first, but it's that process for yourself to get really clear again on your mission, how you're helping people, how you want them to feel, and then building that confidence for yourself to put that out there in the world. But if you're in a place where you feel like you're not ready or you're not quite clear on your path, just start. Just get started and experiment. Marketing is one giant experiment. And if you don't start trying things, you're never going to know. But I will caveat with that you have to also give it some time. So give something 90 days of being consistent before you pivot it. Whether that's a certain message or a title or whatever it is, like don't just keep changing it, because then you're never going to know if it actually worked. But put something out there and see if, like, after 90 days, is this still resonating with me? Is it resonating with my audience? Do I need to tweak it? And then doing that audit for yourself. And then when you feel ready, then that's the place to start creating the logo and the website. There's so many tools out there where you can start doing these things on your own, before you start investing with someone else. And then when you know that this is like, okay, this is my vision for the next few years, that's when you can invest with someone to really take it to the next level.
Yeah, for sure. I think there is definitely value in, while I don't think that to begin with we necessarily need things like a shiny website, logo, things like that. I think it's so true what you said there about, however, sometimes the process of putting that together gives you a lot of clarity, and also like how creating this virtual image of yourself that you put, or your product or your art, whatever that you're putting out in the world, does kind of give you this feeling of like sitting up a bit straighter. And like
Mhm.
it does kind of give you like, this is what I stand for, this is where I'm going, and this is like what this brand is all about. That's definitely valuable, but as you say, I don't think it's always unnecessary to begin with to spend loads of time putting something like a website together. But that's
Yeah.
something a lot of people want to start with often.
And then you might hate it. You might be like, I want to burn this business to the ground. And you should let yourself do that too. Like you have to give yourself permission to do that. So get out there and experiment first. But yeah, I think it is a great exercise on figuring out where you want to go with your business.
Yeah, I think like the maybe the message underpinning a lot is just kind of experiment and be free about it and don't overthink too much, whether that's what you're creating, the way that you are living, or the message that you're putting out through your marketing. It's play really still, and
Hmm.
it's an extension of your creativity.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, I've loved that. I think that people will get so many nuggets and so much insight and so much inspiration from all the things you said, Kaitlyn. So thank
I
you
hope
so
so.
much for coming on to Maverick Mind. Before we end, I'll of course pop all of your info to everything in the show notes. But for people listening, if they're ready to stalk you already, where can they find you?
I hang out most of the time on Instagram at Flourish with Kaitlyn, and my website is Root and Flourish. That's my brand. So yeah, mostly those are the spots where we can connect, and feel free to send me a DM. I love to just talk to people through private messages and engage and get to know you better in your business.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I'll be sure to pop all that info in the show notes. But other than that, thank you for being here and take care,
Thanks
everybody,
for
for
having
listening.
me. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Maverick Mind. I hope that you've loved it. And if you have, I would appreciate it so much if you would subscribe and write a 5-star review on wherever you're listening to this podcast from. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, I invite you to join me over on Instagram at maverickmindco or on my website maverickmind.elliefoden.com. And I'll see you in another podcast very, very soon.